The courthouse looms large, its stone facade unyielding in the midday sun. For some, it's a place of refuge, where justice is served with impartiality and fairness. For others, it's a reminder of the deep and enduring wounds of a system that has always favored the privileged. The town is a patchwork of conflicting histories, divided by race, class, and power. The courthouse, standing as a silent sentinel at its center, carries the weight of centuries of inequality. Its halls, echoing with the stories of those who have been wronged, overlooked, and silenced. Inside, the air feels thick, the quiet oppressive. The echo of footsteps on the marble floors reverberates like a warning. The justice meted out here is rarely for the poor, rarely for those who don't have the right skin. Grace Montgomery knows this better than anyone. It's why she's here, sitting at a small desk in a cramped office, staring at the mountain of legal documents in front of her. The case she's been assigned, Danny's case, feels like a mountain of its own, an insurmountable wall of bias and prejudice that she's expected to climb. Grace takes a deep breath, her fingers tracing the edges of the file. She's no stranger to adversity. Raised in a neighborhood where dreams were often dimmed by circumstance, she learned early on that the world doesn't hand you things just because you work hard. It never did for her mother, who sacrificed everything to give Grace the opportunities she never had. It never did for Grace herself, who fought every step of the way through law school, even as the weight of racial prejudice threatened to crush her spirit at every turn. Her mind drifts back to those early years, the times when people would look at her with doubt, or worse, with disdain. She can still hear the whispers, the questions. Are you sure you belong here? What makes you think you can do this? She remembers the looks she'd get when she entered a courtroom for the first time, the way the air seemed to shift when she spoke up, as if she were taking up space she had no right to. But here she is now, a lawyer, ready to fight. Her fingers curl around the edge of a photo that sits beside the file, her mother, smiling, worn but proud. Grace can almost hear her voice, steady and soft, reminding her of all they've been through. You have to fight, Grace. Don't let them make you feel small. You're here because you deserve it, not because they want you here, but because you fought for it. Her mother's words fill her chest, grounding her. But there's something else, too, a deep, gnawing feeling in her gut that tells her this. Case is different. This isn't just about her, it's about Danny. It's about all the people who have been dismissed, overlooked, and condemned before they even had a chance to defend themselves. And it's about a system that's not just biased, it's rigged. She's interrupted by a knock at the door. Grace? Maya enters, her face full of concern. Grace looks up, trying to mask the exhaustion behind her eyes. Hey, Maya, what's up? Maya hesitates, her gaze flickering to the pile of paperwork. I've been thinking about this case, she says quietly, walking over to the desk. I know you're committed, Grace, but are you sure you're ready for this? I mean, you saw the evidence, right? You saw who we're up against, the Andersons, Judge Collins. It's not just about a courtroom, this is bigger than that. Grace's jaw tightens. She knows what Maya's thinking. They both know how the system works, how it always has. And yet, Maya's doubt stings. I'm ready, she says firmly. I have to be. Maya watches her for a moment, her brow furrowing. You know I believe in you, I do, but you're not just fighting for Danny, Grace. You're fighting against a whole system, and I'm worried that even if you win, it won't change anything. That's the truth. Grace doesn't look away. Her voice is soft but resolute. I'm not just fighting for Danny, Maya. This case, it's not just about one man, it's about everyone who's been hurt by this system. The system that judges people before they even open their mouths. The system that doesn't see us as human. We've got to start somewhere. Maya exhales, nodding slowly. I know, I'm scared, Grace. You're going up against more than just a biased judge. You're fighting a system that's been in place for generations. That's a fight that doesn't get won easily. Grace stands up, the weight of her words settling in the air between them. But if we don't fight, Maya, then what are we doing? Letting them win? Letting them silence us? That's what they want, to make us think we're powerless, that we don't matter. But we do. There's a long pause as Maya searches Grace's face. Her expression softens. You're right, she says quietly. You're always right. I want you to be careful. This fight is dangerous, Grace. Not just for you, but for Danny. The people we're up against, they won't play fair. I know, Grace replies, but I have to try, for him, for all of us. Maya nods, her eyes flickering with a mixture of worry and admiration. I'll back you up, Grace. I'll always have your back. Grace gives her a small, grateful smile, though the tension in her chest doesn't lift. The battle has only just begun, and she knows the hardest part is yet to come. As Maya leaves, Grace stands in the middle of her office, the quiet weight of the case pressing down on her once again. She thinks of Danny, a young man caught in a web of lies, his future, hanging by a thread. She thinks of Judge Collins, arrogant, dismissive, powerful. She thinks of the Andersons with their money, their connections, their privilege. But in the end, it's not about them. It's about Danny. It's about the people who never get a fair chance, whose voices are silenced before they even speak. And it's about Grace, a young woman who's been told her entire life that she doesn't belong, that she can't win, but who has never been afraid to fight. Grace breathes deeply, closing her eyes for a moment, and whispers to herself, "This is bigger than me. It's bigger than any of us." With renewed determination, she picks up the file again, ready to do whatever it takes to bring justice to the courtroom, and maybe, just maybe, to the world. The courtroom is a place where power plays out, but here, the power is not in Grace's hands. As she walks in, the weight of history presses down on her shoulders. Judge Collins, with his gavel in one hand and his lifelong authority in the other, looks at her with a smirk that doesn't quite reach his eyes. He's heard of her. A black woman, an upstart in a system that has long been dominated by people who look like him. "Miss Montgomery," Judge Collins calls out, his voice smooth and dripping with a kind of deliberate disregard. "We're all eager to get started. I trust your arguments will be as cogent as they are brief." Grace doesn't react. She stands at the defense table, her posture impeccable, her breath steady. But she feels it, the hostility in the air, the judgment wrapped up in every gaze. It's as if they've already decided who she is. "I'll do my best, Your Honor," she says, her voice clear, unwavering. Her heart races, but outwardly she appears composed. This is not her first trial, but this is the first time it feels like the system itself is standing against her. She knows the challenge isn't just the case. This is about everything. It's about the weight of her existence in a courtroom that wasn't made for her. It's about Danny, her client, a young, black man who stands accused of something he didn't do. It's about showing them all that even someone like her, someone overlooked, undervalued, can fight back and win. She glances at Danny, sitting next to her, his shoulders tense. He's terrified. He's been here before. The system that's supposed to protect him has always been the one that has turned its back on him. The trial begins. The prosecutor rises, a smug look on his face. He doesn't bother hiding his assumption that this will be easy. He presents the case as though it were already decided. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he starts, "what we have here is a simple case of assault. The victim, Miss Lily Anderson, has made a clear and credible statement about the events that transpired. The defendant, Danny Thompson, a young man with a history of run-ins with the law, was caught on the scene of the crime." Grace's blood begins to boil, but she doesn't interrupt. The words hang in the air, the undertones of racism thick and suffocating. She can feel Danny's discomfort beside her, the heavy weight of his entire existence being questioned, as if his life has no worth, his future already determined by a biased system. The prosecutor continues, his words like daggers. "This case isn't complicated. The victim is a respected member of society, and the defendant, well, he's not." The tension in the room thickens. Grace takes a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm, to center herself in this moment of truth. She's been underestimated her entire life. She's fought for every inch of respect, every ounce of recognition. But now, in this room with Danny's future hanging in the balance, she feels the weight of her community behind her. Her mother's words ring in her ears. "You can't control how people treat you, but you can control how you respond." And with that, something shifts in Grace. The doubt that lingered, the fear of failing, begins to fade. This isn't just her fight, it's everyone's fight. She stands taller, her voice more forceful as she turns back to the jury. This is about more than a man accused of a crime. This is about a system that has failed him from the start. It's about the fight for dignity, the fight for respect, the fight to be seen as fully human. Judge Collins opens his mouth, but Grace is already moving forward. And the truth is, you have the power to make a choice, she continues. You have the power to see Danny for who he really is, not as the stereotype that so many would have you believe, but as a person, a son, a brother, a future, a life that deserves to be protected. The courtroom falls silent. The weight of Grace's words settles over them like a heavy blanket. She has done it. She's reached them. She has planted a seed. But it's not over yet. As the jury begins to deliberate, Grace knows the fight isn't finished. She's won a moment, but the system is still rigged. The fight for justice is ongoing. She looks over at Danny, his eyes full of hope and fear, and gives him a small nod. This is not just his fight, or her fight, or even the fight of the people in this room. This is a fight for all of them. And she won't stop fighting until it's won. The courtroom is silent as Grace steps forward, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Her heart beats loud in her chest, but she forces herself to steady her breath. This is it. This is the moment that will define everything. She doesn't just represent Danny today. She represents every black person who has ever been wrongly accused, every voice that has been ignored, every person who has been overlooked by a system that wasn't designed to protect them. She looks at the jury. Some faces are unreadable, others show the fatigue of a long trial, and a few reveal something else, something new, something that might be hope. Her eyes flick to Judge Collins, who sits unmoved, his expression a mask of indifference. For a moment, Grace wonders if he even sees her at all. She's no longer just a lawyer in this space. She's a woman standing up to a system that was never meant for people like her. She clears her throat, her voice steady. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we've heard a lot over the past few days. We've heard about facts, we've heard about evidence, but there's one thing we haven't heard enough about: truth. The room is quiet, hanging on her every word. The truth is that Danny Thompson is a young man, a man with dreams, a future, a family who loves him. And that truth is being drowned out by a history of prejudice that sees him as a threat simply because of the color of his skin. She pauses, letting the weight of her words sink in. How many times has he been stopped by the police? How many times has he been told that he doesn't belong, that his life is worth less? How many times has he been presumed guilty before he even stepped foot in a courtroom? Grace's eyes sweep over the jury again, her words slicing through the quiet like a knife. This isn't just about Danny. This is about a system that was never built for him. This is about a justice system that sees a black man walking down the street and assumes he's guilty, even before he has the chance to speak. She can feel the shift in the room, the tension building. Grace's voice grows stronger. I stand here today not just as Danny's lawyer. I stand here as a black woman who knows what it's like to walk through life with the weight of the world on your shoulders, to be judged for the color of your skin before you can even open your mouth, to be told that no matter how hard you work, no matter how much you achieve, the system will never truly see you as equal. But I'm also standing here as someone who knows that we cannot be silent anymore. Not for Danny, not for myself, and not for all the people who have been silenced for too long. The words feel like they've taken on a life of their own. Grace doesn't stop to think, doesn't pause to worry about the fallout. She knows that she's speaking not just for herself, but for a community that has been overlooked, exploited, and oppressed for centuries. The reality of systemic racism isn't something she has to convince them of. It's something they already know. It's something they've lived, whether they admit it or not. Grace looks directly at the jury, meeting their eyes one by one. And so I ask you, when you go back to deliberate, when you sit in that room and think about what's at stake here, remember this. Danny Thompson is more than the accusation against him. He's more than the stereotype that the prosecution wants you to believe. He is a son, a brother, a friend. He is a human being just like all of us. She turns to Danny for the first time since she began, her gaze softening. Danny didn't just walk into this courtroom as a defendant. He walked in here as a man who has been denied the basic dignity and fairness that we are all entitled to. And for that, I ask you to consider this. When you make your decision, do so with the weight of justice on your shoulders, not the weight of history, not the weight of prejudice. The room holds its breath, the silence thick, pregnant with possibility. Grace's voice, though quiet now, carries the power of everything she's fought for. Danny Thompson deserves his day in court just like anyone else, and I ask you, in the name of truth, to stand with him. She finishes her statement, but she doesn't sit down right away. She lets the silence linger. For a brief moment, she feels the eyes of the jury on her, not as a black woman in a courtroom, but as someone with something real to say. She feels something shift in the air, the room thick with the weight of the truth she has just laid bare. Judge Collins shifts in his seat, his hand tightening around the gavel, but it's not as firm as it once was. There's a flicker of something behind his eyes, something that hasn't been there before, uncertainty. And for the first time, Grace sees it. For a second, she thinks he might actually say something, something to shut her down, something to remind her of the invisible line she's crossed. But he doesn't. He doesn't say a word. Grace sits down, her heart still pounding, but there's a calm in her chest now. She's said what needed to be said. The room is charged, humming with the weight of what's at stake. Every word has been a challenge, not just to the case at hand, but to the very structure of the system that has long protected those in power and kept people like Danny at the bottom. The jury files out, the weight of their deliberation hanging in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. Grace, Danny, and the others in the courtroom wait in silence, but the silence is different now. It's not just oppressive, it's full of possibility. Maybe, just maybe, something will change today. The clock ticks slowly. The minutes stretch like hours. The anticipation is unbearable, but Grace remains still, her mind racing through everything that has brought her here. The long nights studying, the doubts, the people who told her she'd never make it, and the ones who believed in her when no one else would. She's carried all of them with her into this room, and she's not going to let them down. Finally, the jury returns. The tension in the room is palpable, each person holding their breath, waiting. Grace's hands are clenched together, her knuckles white, but she doesn't move. She waits. The foreman stands, his eyes scanning the room. We, the jury, find the defendant, Danny Thompson, not guilty. The words hang in the air, and for a moment Grace can't breathe. The room erupts into a soft murmur of disbelief and relief. But Grace is still. The fight hasn't been won yet. This victory is bittersweet. It is a victory for Danny, for her, for the community, but it also serves as a glaring reminder of how much more there is to do. The system is flawed. The system is broken, and one case isn't enough to fix it. But for the first time in a long time, Grace feels something she hasn't felt before. Hope, real hope. It's small, fragile, but it's there. She looks at Danny, his face breaking into a smile that is both relieved and overwhelmed. The judge, his face unreadable, bangs the gavel. But for the first time it sounds different. It's quieter somehow, as if the weight of his authority has been chipped away. Grace watches him, and she feels it too. The foundations of the system he represents have been shaken. For the first time, Judge Collins is not the unchallenged authority in the room. He's just a man, and he's been forced to face the cracks in his own power. The world around him is shifting, and for once it feels like the system is on trial, and Grace knows this is just the beginning. The courthouse doors close behind Grace, but the weight of the day doesn't seem to lift. Her step is light, but her mind is heavy. The words "not guilty" still echo in her ears, a resounding victory, but somehow not enough. She fought for Danny, she fought for justice, but this moment is only a single step in a much longer, grueling race. The sun has already begun to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the pavement as Grace walks slowly down the courthouse steps. The victory is hers, but it feels incomplete, as if the momentary triumph has revealed just how far there is still to go. She's won for Danny, but how many others have she left behind? How many people just like him will never get this chance? The burden of it all presses against her chest, but as her feet hit the pavement, she straightens her back. This fight isn't over. It can't be. Grace pulls out her phone, her fingers trembling just slightly as she dials her mother's number. She's always been the one who called her mother when the weight of the world felt too heavy, when she was on the verge of breaking. This time, though, it's different. This time, her mother is not the one she needs to reassure. Grace needs to hear her mother's voice, to remind herself of the woman who raised her to fight when the world told her to surrender. The phone rings once, twice, and then her mother answers. "Grace!" Her mother's voice is warm, familiar, grounding. "Mom, I won," Grace whispers, the words catching in her throat. For a second, she wonders if she'll even be able to say it. The relief is so vast it feels overwhelming. "I know, baby." Her mother's voice softens as though she's been holding this moment with Grace all along. "I knew you would." Grace can feel the tears pricking at her eyes, but she holds them back. This moment is for Danny, but it's also for her mother, who taught her to fight, who taught her that resilience isn't just about survival. It's about changing the system, changing the world for the better. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom." Grace's voice cracks and she lets the words spill out before she can stop them. "You were always the one who told me I could be anything, do anything. But I was so scared. I didn't think I was strong enough, not until today." Her mother's laugh is low, comforting. "You're stronger than you know, Grace. You've always been strong. I saw it the day you were born. You were always meant for something bigger than just surviving. You were meant to make a difference, and today you did." Grace closes her eyes for a moment, absorbing her mother's words. For so long, she'd thought she was fighting only for herself, for her place in a world that told her she couldn't. But now she understands she's been fighting for something much greater. This victory isn't just for her or Danny, it's for her mother, for all the women who have fought this battle before her, and for the ones who will follow. "Thank you, Mom," Grace whispers, her voice thick with emotion. "This is for us, for everything we've been through. Always, baby, always." Grace hangs up the phone, but she doesn't move right away. She stands there for a moment in the growing twilight, letting her mother's words settle in her soul. For the first time, she feels the weight of her own journey, the long nights, the fear, the doubts, and understands that she's not just carrying her own story, but the stories of so many others. Her mother's wisdom has always been a beacon for her, and now it shines brighter than ever. She's not just a lawyer fighting for one case, she's a symbol of change, a symbol of what it means to stand up and say enough. Grace has shifted from a defender to an advocate, someone whose voice holds weight, not only in the courtroom, but in the community. She's not just representing Danny anymore, she's representing every person who's been pushed aside, every person whose voice has been muffled by a system that doesn't want to hear them. As Grace walks back to her car, she reflects on the change that has already begun. She thinks of the people who had been sitting in the courtroom, the ones who'd watched her stand against Judge Collins, against the whole system. She knows that her fight has sparked something in them too. What was once a quiet, fragile hope has now become a collective roar, a call for justice that can't be ignored. She feels the energy of the community behind her. What she's done today isn't just about her, it's about everyone who has stood up, fought back, and said enough. For once the system is beginning to crack, beginning to show its weaknesses. And that's because of people like her, people who refuse to accept the status quo, who dare to speak the truth even when it's hard. But with that realization comes a weight. She's a symbol now, a beacon, and that is a heavy mantle to carry. The road ahead is still long. There will be more battles, more cases, more people who don't believe in the change she's trying to make. But with each small victory, with each moment of progress, Grace feels her resolve harden. This fight is bigger than any one person, any one case. This is a battle for justice, for equality, for the future. She gets into her car, the engine humming to life as she drives away from the courthouse. Her phone buzzes, and she glances down to see a message from Maya. "You did it. I knew you would." "Proud of you," Grace smiles softly. Her heart swells, but it's a quiet, powerful feeling. Maya was right, she did it. But it's not over. Not by a long shot. As she drives into the night, the weight of victory feels more like a responsibility. Now, a responsibility to carry the hopes of those who came before her and the hopes of those who will come after. She's walked this road, but she's not alone, and though she knows the road ahead will be hard, full of obstacles and opposition, she feels something she hasn't felt in a long time: hope. Real, tangible hope. Change is on the horizon, and she's ready to continue the fight. When she arrives home, she steps out of the car and looks up at the sky, the first stars beginning to shine through the darkening sky. The horizon is wide, endless, filled with possibilities. She knows she's not finished yet, but she's closer than she's ever been. And for the first time, the world seems just a little bit brighter. Grace takes a deep breath, then walks toward the door, her heart full and her mind determined. The journey is far from over, but she's no longer afraid of it. She's ready. The world is ready. And together, they'll change it.